Thank you for listening to Heart Chat Stories. I'd really love to hear your thoughts, so don't forget to leave a comment and share these stories with someone who might need them. Each story is meant to help you pause, reflect, and think about your own relationships, how you love, how you heal, and how you grow. If you'd like more insight into the stories or want to add one to your next book club, visit graceguidance.com. You can find the full collection there, along with reflection prompts to keep the conversations going. And remember, every story in Heart Chat Stories is a chance to rediscover yourself, one honest chat at a time.
She was already irritated when he walked in, late, confident, and completely unconcerned with the disruption he caused. Kennedy Blake didn't look up right away. She didn't need to. The room shifted the moment he entered, the kind of subtle disturbance that announced entitlement before introductions were ever made. Chairs adjusted, attention drifted. Someone chuckled softly, as if his tardiness were charming instead of disrespectful. She finished her sentence anyway. Which means our projected timeline shortens by 6 weeks without compromising safety or quality, she said. Voice even, controlled, practiced. Only then did she lift her eyes. Their gazes met for half a second too long. Long enough for something sharp and entirely unwanted to spark in her chest. He was tall, relaxed in a way that suggested he'd never once questioned whether a room would make space for him. Dark suit, open collar, a faint smile that didn't ask permission. Sysco Thorne didn't apologize for being late. He didn't explain. He simply took the empty seat at the table like it had been waiting for him all along. Whatever this was, Kennedy decided instantly, it was not going to be easy. And she wasn't sure she wanted it to be. She was here to win a contract, the largest municipal redevelopment project the Tri-City area had seen in over a decade. Housing, retail, green space, a legacy project, the kind that defined careers, the kind that decided who stayed in the room and who got pushed out of it. Sysco Thorne was her competition, and she was not losing. Kennedy Blake straightened slightly, shoulders squared beneath her tailored blazer. She was the best general contractor in the Tri-City area. Results proven, crews loyal, numbers solid. But she was also the only woman at the table, the only minority, and the only one carrying a name that meant more than profit margins. Blake Construction had been built by her father's hands 30 years ago. Long days, longer nights. Contracts earned the hard way when doors didn't open easily for men who looked like him. She hadn't inherited a company. She had inherited expectation. This wasn't just about her crew's paychecks, though those mattered. This was about protecting what her father had built with integrity, sweat, and sacrifice. About making sure it didn't quietly slide into someone else's portfolio because she slipped once. She wasn't going to take the fall so her brothers could swoop in later and claim stewardship over something they'd never bled for. For now, she had one job: execute. And Sysco Thorne, handsome, charming, and entirely too comfortable, was in her way. He leaned back in his chair, finally meeting her eyes again, curiosity glinting there, like he already knew this wasn't going to be simple. Kennedy held his gaze without blinking. Let him underestimate her. She'd built her whole career on proving men like him wrong. Sysco Thorne arrived late on purpose. Not out of disrespect, but calculation. He liked to read a room already in motion, to see who commanded attention when no one was watching, who held authority without demanding it, who tightened when pressure shifted. That was how he saw her. Kennedy Blake stood at the head of the table like she'd built it herself, back straight, voice precise, every word placed with intention. She didn't waste movement, didn't waste breath. She was sharp, prepared, unapologetically competent, and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with softness. Sysco leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing slightly as she continued. He'd reviewed her work long before this meeting. Her timelines were aggressive but clean, her crews loyal, her safety record impeccable. This wasn't inherited success, it was earned. She's the real deal, he thought, and she knows it. What intrigued him more was what she didn't show. The subtle tightening of her jaw when someone interrupted her. The way her shoulders lifted just a fraction when she anticipated pushback. How she stood like someone prepared to defend ground she'd already paid for. She was always braced. Sysco had seen her before, at industry mixers, city fundraisers, community redevelopment events. Always present, always polished, always guarded. There was a defense up that never quite lowered, even when she laughed, especially then. Men like the ones at this table thought toughness was dominance. Sysco knew better. Toughness was endurance, and endurance, carried too long, turned into weight. She shouldn't have to carry all of this alone, he thought. Not because she couldn't, but because she shouldn't have to. He didn't underestimate her for choosing a male-dominated industry. He admired her for surviving it. But admiration didn't blind him to the cost. The pressure on women like Kennedy wasn't just about winning. It was about never slipping. About knowing that failure wouldn't just be personal, it would be used as proof. He watched her shift slightly, one heel angling outward as if her body needed a release her mind wouldn't allow. The movement was small, nearly invisible, but Sysco noticed. She's uncomfortable, he realized, and she won't let anyone see it. That was the moment his interest crossed into something more dangerous. He wasn't here to save her. He wasn't arrogant enough to think she needed rescuing. But he believed, deeply, that a woman like Kennedy deserved a partner who didn't add to the pressure. Someone who could stand between her and the constant demand to prove, protect, and perform. Someone who understood that rest wasn't weakness, that creating from peace was different than creating from fear. He glanced around the table, at the men sizing her up, waiting for her to falter, hoping she'd soften just enough to dismiss her. They saw competition. Sysco saw legacy.
He saw a woman building from the threat of losing something sacred. Her father's name, her place, her authority. That kind of creation burned hot, but never rested. She doesn't know it yet, he thought, but she's building in survival mode. And survival mode was no place to stay forever. Kennedy finished her presentation and looked directly at him, challenge clear in her eyes. Good. He met her gaze evenly, not smiling, not retreating. This wasn't flirtation. It was recognition. I want the contract, he told himself firmly. That's the business. But beneath that truth sat another, quieter, more personal, and far more dangerous. And I want the chance to show her she doesn't have to carry everything alone. He doubted she'd see it that way. Women like Kennedy Blake didn't trust offers that sounded like relief. They sounded too much like surrender. Still, Sysco Thorne had never been afraid of a woman who challenged him, and he suspected, deep down, that Kennedy wasn't afraid of him either. She was afraid of needing something she'd never been allowed to want. Kennedy gathered her portfolio with practiced calm, sliding the last page into place as if her pulse hadn't shifted the moment the meeting chair leaned forward again. Both proposals are strong, Councilman Reeves said, fingers steepled. Very strong. Given the scale of this project, the city would like to see additional development samples. Kennedy didn't flinch.
We're requesting expanded site concepts, Reeves continued. Community integration plans, sustainability projections, a clearer vision of long-term impact. Sysco spoke up before she could, his voice smooth but measured. You want to see how we build beyond the numbers? Reeves nodded. Exactly. Kennedy turned slightly toward Sysco, her expression unreadable. So he's not just charm, she noted. He listens. And when would you need these samples? She asked. 2 weeks, Reeves said. We'll reconvene then. 2 weeks. Enough time to impress. Enough time to expose weaknesses. The meeting adjourned in a shuffle of chairs and polite handshakes. Kennedy moved quickly, intent on exiting before anyone tried to soften the moment with small talk. Ms. Blake. She stopped, despite herself. Sysco stood beside her now, closer than he had been all meeting, but still respectful, still measured. His eyes were intent, not intrusive. Kennedy, he corrected gently. We're not at the podium anymore. She raised an eyebrow. Careful, she said. Familiarity can be misread. Only if it's careless, he replied. That gave her pause. You handled that well, he continued. Most people would have pushed back on the request. I don't waste energy fighting decisions already made, she said. I focus on execution. A corner of his mouth lifted. I figured. They started walking toward the hallway without deciding to, 2 leaders exiting the same space, neither willing to yield ground. You've been to our community builds, she said suddenly. I've seen you watching. He didn't deny it. I like to know who I'm up against. And? She asked, stopping near the glass doors. And you build like someone protecting something, he said honestly. Not just chasing growth. Her jaw tightened. There it was, the thing she hated most, being seen. That's not your concern, she said coolly. No, he agreed, but it is your strength. Silence settled between them, thick but not uncomfortable. They want more samples, she said finally. We'll give them more. Looks like we'll be doing the same dance, he replied. This isn't a dance, she said. It's a contract. Sysco held her gaze. Everything important looks like business until it isn't. She studied him then, really studied him. The confidence, yes. The charm, undeniable. But also restraint. Intention. Dangerous, she thought. Don't confuse competition with connection, she warned. He smiled, not smug, not dismissive. Curious. I don't. They reached the doors. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that something had just shifted. 2 weeks, she said. 2 weeks, he echoed. Kennedy walked away without looking back. Sysco watched her go, hands in his pockets, pulse steady but alert. Power had brought them into the same room. Want was going to make everything complicated. Kennedy had always trusted places that required effort to enter. The local historic library sat tucked between newer buildings like it refused to be erased, brick darkened by time, windows tall and narrow, silence thick with memory. This was where truth lived before it was summarized, before it was digitized and diluted. She signed in, nodding to the clerk, and requested the original city development plans, hand-drawn maps, zoning overlays, land use proposals that predated politics and profit. The clerk disappeared into the stacks, then returned with a sympathetic smile. I'm sorry, she said. Those have already been pulled. Kennedy frowned. By who? The clerk hesitated just long enough to answer honestly. Mr. Thorne. Of course. Kennedy thanked her and followed the direction she was given down a long hallway toward the conference room. Her steps slowed as she approached the door. This is still business, she reminded herself. She hesitated, just for a breath, then pushed the door open. Sysco looked up. "Ah," he said, already rising slightly from his chair. "You're going to want to see this." There was no smugness in his voice, no victory, just invitation. He gestured toward the table where old plans were spread wide, edges yellowed, ink faded, lines drawn by hands that had shaped the city before either of them existed. "I was just looking at how the original designers followed the land instead of forcing it," he said, tapping one corner of the map. "See the way the roads curve here? They respected the slope, the water flow." Kennedy stepped closer despite herself. "They built with the land," she murmured, "not on top of it." "Exactly," Sysco said, pleased. "And somewhere along the way, we forgot that development doesn't have to dominate to be successful. It can listen." She glanced at him, caught off guard by the word. Listen. That wasn't how men in this industry talked. She moved to his side, close enough to smell clean soap and something woodsy beneath it. Electricity sparked low in her chest, unwelcome and undeniable. "These designs," she said carefully, "they were meant to grow with the community." "And protect it," he added. "Integrity isn't just structural, it's emotional. People feel when land is honored." She looked at him then, really looked. His focus wasn't on her reaction. It was on the plans, on the future, on something bigger than ego. The realization unsettled her. She leaned forward slightly, pointing to a section near the river. "If we anchor green space here, the surrounding builds would naturally open instead of closing in." His smile was slow, genuine. "That's exactly what I was thinking." Their shoulders brushed. The contact was brief, accidental. Still, Kennedy's breath caught. Sysco noticed. He always noticed. He shifted subtly, not away, but enough to give her space. His restraint made the moment heavier, not lighter. I could show her, he thought. I could reach out, say something that would tilt this. But he didn't. Because affection, offered too soon, would feel like intrusion. Instead, he said, quietly, "You build from protection. I build from flow. They don't have to be opposites." Kennedy swallowed, pulse loud in her ears. "I don't usually collaborate with my competition," she said. "I don't usually want to," he replied, eyes steady. "But I do now." Silence wrapped around them, thick, thoughtful, charged. Kennedy straightened slowly, aware of her body, of the way standing beside him felt like alignment instead of threat. "This is still a competition," she reminded him, and herself. Sysco nodded. "I know." But as they stood over the city's past, mapping its future together, one truth pressed gently but insistently between them. The land wasn't the only thing responding to their proximity. And neither of them was ready to walk away just yet. Kennedy moved to the window and took a seat, the old wood chair creaking softly beneath her. Outside, sunlight filtered through tall trees, dust motes drifting in the quiet like the building itself was breathing with her. She let out a long, tense sigh. It surprised even her. Sysco noticed immediately.
Thank you for listening to Heart Chat Stories. Every story is written with love, to heal, to inspire, and to remind you that new beginnings are always possible. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so others can find healing through story. Until next time, keep your heart open and your spirit lifted.